don't get free food. I said, oh. I said, because you bought me food last week, and I'm super busy, and I figured, oh, well, 2 people went and got a pork chop sandwich, and they were older, and I at Hilton was one of them. I said, where'd you get it from? Oh, we got it from the guy and got it free. I was like, oh, okay. I said, can you watch this? Because I'm hungry. And I go down there and was like, nope, you don't get it. I was like, I almost said, well, 2 other people did, but I didn't want to bust them out. He said, okay, no problem. I didn't bring money. He goes, oh, okay, didn't feel sorry for me at all.
The biggest thing I need to get Brad to understand is at football games they need to come to the north stand.
Yeah, that it isn't pick a stand.
Yeah.
Go to the north stand.
Because the other stands are already too busy. And I'm always standing by the north stand.
Yeah, and Miss Leeper, she lets me come usually because she knows so usually working.
And I've been known to free food.
They weren't on my list. Wow, like principals and all that.
Hey, I'll get paid enough money.
You're right.
You're the one making $16 an hour.
I'm speaking up. That's not going up because he said in the fall you'll get paid well.
He's about to have a conversation where he's going to get told his grand scheme is not going to work.
He's gonna go beg, borrow, and plea, and pretty sure he's gonna get told we're trying to cut 5 to 10% out of everyone's budget. He's about the route he wanted to go. That he claimed was going to make it so he could give you guys a raise, which I'm still a little leery on that whole grand scheme that he had. But he had a grand scheme, and you know, everyone's told me all through it. And I was like, okay. No one says to any of that, but okay. That's how a lot of our conversations go. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah, he told me. I said, there's not that many of us if you really break it down.
No.
About 4 people that regularly do this. And then I said, since this hand, he goes, I know. I looked at it. So it's not right, but in the fall. She told me this in January, February. Fall, yeah, the new year, it'll be approved. I was like, I can't wait to get to it.
Try the easy thing. Hey, that's why we can only make fun of each other for those things. All right.
The biggest problem.
We are going to get started.
Probably going to get a massive cut.
I was going to say the dwindle.
We are still having a great week at camp, although it has rained every single day for 14 days. And the river's up, but it's not barely out of its banks, so we're good.
Are they learning about Noah while they're out there?
We should have, but no, we're doing Bible basics this week. We should have done the story.
Noah is Bible basics.
I guess. I would say this: our teachers with the little kids do a great job. Our teachers do a great job because even little Declan, Ian said that the first second. How many books of the Bible are here, Declan, on the front row? Yeah. 6. And Ian, huh? 6. And then he starts naming all the books of the Bible, and he's like, I don't understand him. I said, but you know what it sounds like?
16
Go with it.
Right.
But we're having a great session, a lot of kids, and the kids have been very good considering it has been a rain out the whole time. But today they were just playing the rain. They got tired of trying to stay dry. They were in the rain all day. Anyway, we're going to talk about humility some tonight. We're in Daniel chapter 4. By the way, I'm going to share some with you. Y'all know I love Bibles, and I got a new Bible, and I've started reading it. There's a new version of the Bible, well, fairly new, it's a few years old, but I just was introduced, and I've been reading it a lot at night. It's called the Legacy Standard Bible. They took the principles of the NASB and the basic work of the NASB, which has been considered for many years the gold standard in direct word-for-word translation and putting it in modern language. The Legacy took that, they have updated the language to be modern. However, they also took the turnabout that the word God is not adequate in and of itself. Because God is just an overall word, when God is God the healer, God is God the provider. And so instead of just saying God, when it's talking about the God of the universe over everything, it uses the word Yahweh. When it uses Jesus it calls him Lord and not just Jesus. And things like, instead of saying slave, they've gone back to the Greek, which is doulos, which means servant, not particularly slave. So they've updated quite a bit. And I've been, like I said, reading. I read today's lesson, and you'll see it up there. I'm using this for that. And it's a little more precise in some of its language. So a lot of people in the world, it will mean nothing. It won't make a big difference. But for people that are trying to study, it helps you get a precise understanding of some of the words while still trying to use modern language.
Did they do it for more than just God? Like, did they separate loves out?
I don't know about the love. I didn't look at that in depth yet. Mm-hmm. It just came in the mail a few days ago, and I started immediately reading different passages. But they said they tried to be as precise when a word needed further definition than just a generic English word.
What's the version called?
Legacy Standard, LSB. Legacy Standard Bible. Again, it is an NASB update, which y'all know I love. I think it's very accurate, and this took it one step further. It's the same people that did the NASB and then the NSB update. Anyway, and I had a brand new Bible camp, and it got rained on and destroyed in my tent one day because the window was open. So I had to buy that same Bible again because I really wanted that Bible. It's an ESV Reader's Bible, which has no chapters or verses throughout the New Testament. So you'll read it as a letter that was written. Which y'all know I like that too. I always say ignore those because they don't help. Anyway, so tonight, Daniel chapter 4, this is Nebuchadnezzar is going to get a lesson in humility. And he's going to get it in a big way. And if you don't remember the story, Nebuchadnezzar is going to lose his mind for a short time, and he's going to wander in the wilderness for a time. And we'll look at it, but there is just very specifically one sentence he says that God zaps him and says, "You're done. I gave you a warning, you're done." And I think one of the things we can take from that right away is God has great patience, but it is not limitless. We must never forget God is love. But I don't know about y'all, but I love my kids, but I whoop on him sometimes too when he was little. That doesn't mean you don't love. That means sometimes you need discipline. So, Daniel chapter 4, Daniel says, 7 times will pass over you until you know the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. I don't know what that one is. Anyway. So, we have probably all gotten to the point where pride has gotten us into trouble. If you're a guy, we all brag what we can do, and then somebody just does it better. A good example is if you're into sports. Caitlin Clark, man, that girl's good. But the other week, they passed her over for the Olympics team because, well, she's a newbie. She's new. So they had a practice game this week with the WNBA All-Stars and the Olympic team. She showed out and just beat the snot out of the Olympic team, and a lot of it was her. And she's broken all these records. See, their pride in saying she's too new, she doesn't fit in with the rest of us, is getting them in trouble. Well, all guys do it, don't we? We brag about something, and then... So, what has anybody learned about humility through their experience? Has anybody got an experience that they really learned a good lesson about humility? I'm seeing nods, but nobody's sharing yet. All right.
I have grown in my humility in many things, but not all of the right things, because I haven't learned all of the right lessons yet.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Join the club. We all do that.
That's it. I think there's especially for me, because I do the same things I did in high school. And so I've expounded on that a lot, and I've actually seen the growth. And because you see the growth and you've seen the hard work that goes into it, I think that actually does make you more humble about it than prideful over it. And you see, especially I deal with teenagers all the time, so being prideful to them is stupid. It's just useless. Of course you're better at everything than they are because they're not intelligent. So.
What does that say about somebody, not you, but when we see somebody, they know someone is lesser in intelligence, ability, whatever, and they try and show off in front of that person. That is a form of pride. Because you don't want it, you just want to make sure that you rub their face in the fact that you're better than them.
Talking about being more precise, I honestly feel like there should be a different word for that. Because I see it all the time and it's like, why are you even competing with that person? You're in a completely different league. Why are you even talking about competing with this person or trying to rub that person in it? Because it is useless for you to do that. Because it's not making you better. It's like you're playing the game on easy when you're not growing at all from it. And I mean, I agree with you. I think it is a part of pride, but I also think there's other things in there that are worse than, I mean, not that you can get worse than pride, obviously, but yeah, it's like an arrogance, yeah.
One of the fun things about camp is there's always preachers there that we sit and discuss. And there was a group for a long time that argued about stuff. We don't do that anymore. We'll discuss. And every now and then you get a person that wants to be in, and anybody's welcome to join us. And we were talking about words because we talked about this Bible. We were talking about Greek and Hebrew words, and this person jumped in acting as if they knew all the answers to everything we were saying. So a question was asked of them directly, not to be mean, just, oh, then what is that word? I mean, because I don't remember what that one translates to. The other preacher, what is it? I'm not sure. Oh, somebody's calling me. You know, it's like, you let your pride get away. Just, if you don't have something to contribute that minute, you will later. Be patient. Anyway, so it's a situation. King Nebuchadnezzar.
Mackenzie has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ken.
I was sitting here thinking of hearing Bob's comment, and I remember sitting in a meeting once. They brought me in with a parent that was very ticked off about they didn't call her on her son that had left the building, and so they were like, we could have to bring you in here because his son's left home, and you know him very well, and I dealt with him every day, so just to kind of calm her down. So we were all deans, principal, and everybody, and the conversation started off. I'm listening. I said, I'm not going to say too much. I want to hear what she has to say, and she was hot. And then this condescending tone came from a couple of administrators, and after it was going very sideways, I said, can I say something? And so they're like, yeah. So then I said, I'm going to speak for the team here. And she totally calmed down. I said, we might not have handled this right, but we care for him. I deal with him every day, and going forward, we're going to do better. And she was like, thank you, whoever you are, she know me.
Whoever you are.
And yeah, because, it's a conference call. And when she hung up, I said, listen, we can't be condescending in the way we talk to people. And, they all agreed. And I said, if you don't step outside your circle of what we do every day, which some of them don't go to places where these kids are to relate to them, you don't go to the center, which some have never been there, then how can you talk as if, well, we do blah, blah, blah. I said, and that's not true. So just let's be truthful with our conversation, and let's bring our tones down. And we all got that, and all our relationships were better from that, I can say. So
We're going to say it with Nebuchadnezzar here. If Nebuchadnezzar had just said, yeah, God's better than me, he would have avoided all this mess. If we learn to humble ourselves, especially in situations where you see conflicts developing or whatever, does it hurt you to step back and just say, I'm sorry? There's a time not to say that, but there's times to say it.
I got an email last week that was asking me a question and whatnot, and it's what you just said. I had a whole response typed out, and I started telling Kayla about it, and she said, you can't write that. It's just, you're bragging about why this is happening, and that's not what is needing to happen. And said, not to mention, you're not particularly fond of this person, so you're also putting this, And she said, you need to wait a couple days and write that later, and then have me read it. And I did. I mean, And 4 days later, rewrote it, and that was much better. Came up from a different angle, and just
That's always a rule of thumb in
Yeah.
conflict, write it and then wait a day or two.
yeah. And
read
it wasn't even an angry thing. It was just what he was asking wasn't really their business, and so it just. But the thing is, it was my response was very prideful, and what I came back with was what I was
Short and sweet.
Short and
Which
sweet.
never brings down the argument.
Yeah.
So, somebody turn to Daniel chapter 3, verse 29 real quick. So, this is the same king Nebuchadnezzar that just threw Shadrach, Meshach, Rakshak, and Abednego into the fiery furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's our kids all week have been saying, you mean Rakshak and Abednego? No, those are vegetables that talk, not a cartoon. We're talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But anyway, now I'm saying. Anyway, so he sees, how many people does he see in the furnace?
4.
4. And I don't know why Daniel wasn't included in this one, but anyway, he sees Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and an angel, which he declares to be the Son of God. We don't know that for a fact, but that's what the king declares. And so the king says this. What does he say in 329? I think you've got it back there. Okay. Karen?
Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses should be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this.
That last part's the important one. There is no other God that can do this. So he makes a statement, and it's only a few years later that he's unwilling to acknowledge that God has any power at all. He is so forgetful.
We
And
are,
so...
we are too.
Huh?
We are too.
We are too. Yes.
Nebuchadnezzar said that it's the Lord. I thought this is one of the places where, in a translation, they capitalized it, and so we just always assumed it was the Lord or Jesus.
We make that assumption, but we don't know that.
That's what I'm saying. You had said that Nebuchadnezzar said it. I thought this was
he does.
one.
Nebuchadnezzar says in chapter...
325.
In what?
325.
325. He says, he actually said, look, I see 4 men loose and walking about in the middle of it without harm. And the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods. Because he says the word gods, he can very well be talking about Baal, not Jehovah God.
Mm-hmm.
So we have no knowledge that that's who this was for sure. We know at the very least an angel appears to comfort them. Could it have been our name Jesus? He does appear in other situations like that, so it could be.
Is it 4 times he appears in the?
I don't know. I think.
Oh. Because I know of the 4, I feel like 3 of them are. It could have just been a translation of it was capitalized when they wrote it, and that's why they assume.
Yeah, that's what Karen said the other week. Said we don't know for sure, and we don't. In any of the situations, or most of them, we don't know for sure.
Because that's what happened in the Jacob story, right? Jacob account.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Daniel chapter 4, 19 to 33. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was appalled for a while as his thoughts were alarming him. The king answered and said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you. In other words, he says, I don't want, in his mind, he's saying, I don't want to tell you what you just dreamed, because it's bad news. And so he says, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you. Hang on just one second. I apologize, but since I am at camp, I keep getting these warnings. So, do not let the dream or its interpretation alarm you. Belteshazzar answers and says, My lord, if only the dream applied to those who hate you, and its interpretation to your adversaries. In other words, this would be great news if it was your enemies. So that's a soft way of saying, it's bad news for you, bud. And so it says, the tree that you saw which became large and grew strong, whose height reached to the sky and was visible to the whole earth, and whose foliage was beautiful and its fruit abundant, and in which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field inhabited, and in whose branches the birds of the sky dwelt. It is you, O king, for you have become great and grown strong, and your greatness has become even greater, and reached to the sky, and your dominion to the end of the earth. This was a powerful nation. Probably, in many ways, one of the most powerful in history. They did not have quite the reach of Rome, but they were right up there with them. So anyway, but in that the king saw a watcher, a holy one, descending from the heaven and saying, chop down the tree and destroy it. Yet leave the stump with its roots in the earth, but with a band of iron and bronze around it. in the new grass of the field, and let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him share with the beasts of the field until 7 periods of time pass over him. So this is the interpretation, O king. And this is the resolution of the Most High. Who's the Most High? God. That you be driven away from mankind, and your place of habitation be with the beasts of the field, and you will be given grass to eat like cattle, and you'll be drenched with the dew of heaven. And 7 periods of time will pass over you until you know that the Most High is the powerful ruler over the kingdom of mankind, and gives it to whomever he wishes. And in that they said to leave the stump with the roots of the tree. Your kingdom will endure for you after you know that it is heaven that rules with power. Therefore, king, may my advice seem good to you. Break away now from your sins by doing righteousness, and from your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, in case there may be a prolonging of your prosperity. Now all of this reached Nebuchadnezzar the king. At the end of 12 months, he's walking on the roof of the royal palace. So a year goes by. He's been given all this warning. He's walking on the roof of the royal palace in Babylon, and the king says, is it not Babylon that is great, which I myself has built as a royal house by the strength of my power, and for the glory of my majesty? And he's walking along. He may have had service, but man, he's doing some serious bragging walking along up there.
When it's I and my, that's a red flag.
Big time. So, while the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice comes from heaven and says, King Nebuchadnezzar, how bad do you feel at this moment when a voice rings out of heaven to remind you? To you it is said, the kingdom has been removed from you, and you will be driven away from mankind, and your place of habitation will be with the beasts of the field. You will be given grass to eat like cattle, and 7 periods of time will pass over you, until you know that the Most High is the powerful ruler over the kingdom of mankind, and gives it to whomever he wishes. Immediately the word concerning Nebuchadnezzar was accomplished. He was driven away from mankind. He began eating grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails were like bird's claws. Now, I will confess to you all, I forgot to look up what 7 periods of time was. Anybody remember?
In the fullness of time, I think it means it's a full.
But was there anything that said the exact time frame? Yes, I agree with you. The 7 probably means long enough that his fingernails had grown like this. You know, his hair was long. And we all know, comparison to an eagle, how their feathers on their head seem to drape down their back, the white does. So he's there a long time. I don't remember if there's a specific reference. I meant to look it up. I might have been busy the last 2 weeks. I forgot. So in what ways did Daniel say King Nebuchadnezzar was like the tree in the dream?
Because it's big and strong. This kingdom is big and strong. And it has far reaches like the roots.
What is the reference to the birds use your branches and the animals rest under you imply?
That you
Or
keep
represent?
people safe.
Huh?
That you're keeping your kingdom safe. And people feel safe around your kingdom. It's not I would say it's not crime-ridden kind of thing.
Protection.
Protection. I've always seen that to include their, in my mind, to include the companies that they, or the countries that they had, what's the word, conquered. So they're still caring for them, even though they've conquered them. But yeah, so that's verse 22, by the way. O king, for you have become great, grown strong, and your greatness has become even greater. Reach to the sky, and your dominion to the ends of the earth. So what was the significance of the angel cutting down the tree in his dream?
The fact that no matter how big and strong you get, God can still wipe you from the earth.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And he can do it instantly. In this case, I remember from college one of our teachers said the belief is that to his advisors, it appeared that he went mad. And they just got rid of him. Or that he ran away. And they attributed that to madness. It is very interesting they allowed him to keep his throne when he came back. They did not, because most countries would have said, my chance, I get to be the king now. But they didn't. And that's God's hand, clearly. In Daniel chapter 4, verse 24, a significant word there is, this is the resolution. What's a resolution?
Final decision.
Final decision. I have resolved it this way. You're done. Um, and of course, leaving the stump in place is saying there's still roots. It can grow up. I got a tree in my backyard that, man, the grubs really ate it up. A couple years ago, it looked really bad. Last year, it still looked bad. I thought it might get better. I worked on the grub situation. And so, about a year ago, I cut it back severely. I mean, I scalped that thing, and I thought, it's not going to survive. This year, the ball of leaves is not huge, but it's beautiful and perfectly round. I mean, the trees want to come back, even when you just beat them up bad. They want to come back. And so his kingdom is sitting there. It's waiting for an opportunity to come back. So, again, what triggered these events to happen? What was the trigger that made God say, now the resolution comes to pass? And Daniel, remember Daniel said, stop your sin, end your pride. So again, what specific thing happened that God said, you're done? Verse 27 is your hint, chapter 4.
That's when he's walking on the roof
Yeah.
and takes pride in all that he has.
Yeah. My kingdom, I built this. My power, those type words. That was where God said, you've not learned anything from that. So what impact does the event have on Nebuchadnezzar when he regained his senses? Verse 30, the king said, is this not... No, that's not the verse I want. The impact when he regained his senses was...
Verse 34.
Yes. Go ahead and read it, Julie.
At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. And I praised the Most High, I honored and glorified him who lives forever.
Yeah. I looked up at, we were talking the other day, and somebody said, I very seriously prayed for everything, and my husband thinks I'm nuts. Sarah, she said, if I lose my keys, I pray to God before I spend all my time searching the house. She said, I don't. Karen does too, apparently. She says, I pray for every single thing, and he says, kind of like I do about a tire, it might just be a flat tire. He says, why are you praying for the milk to be fresh? Because it might not be. We have children to feed. Yeah. Well, we still have to do our work too, right? Get to the store within, once a year or something for your milk before it turns into cottage cheese. But there's a point to that. What are you saying when you pray to God about every single thing?
You believe that he'll do it.
Yes?
And that he cares about everyone.
And that he cares. You are surrendering and saying, God, you are in control, not me. You're surrendering that.
And it says there, for his dominion is an everlasting dominion. He's over everything.
For all time. Yeah, and a good doulos, as I mentioned earlier, good servant, recognizes that. When we think of the concept of in the New Testament, Paul and others kept talking about doulos, servant. The concept being, if you are a servant, you do what you're told regardless. It is not your choice to make. I don't get to change the rules of servitude. I just serve. In the military, I would give my opinion. But when somebody said, do it, I did it. And then later on when I was the boss, they did it. And the bottom line was, at that point, I had ultimate authority over them to make them do anything. Or I could fine them, or I could reassign them. I did both on a regular occurrence.
Commands are not opinions.
Yeah, and I was very good about asking, because I was a good trainer in my mind. Not being prideful. But I was good about saying, what do you think we should do? And then I would say, and here's what my experience says we should do. But I let them have an opinion, but the bottom line was, it's my responsibility.
And not option.
Yeah, it's not optional. Somebody dies, I'm the one in trouble, not you. So, what does this story tell you about the danger of pride and not acknowledging? There's several verses I want to share. Leviticus chapter 26, verse 19. I will break down your pride of strength. I'll break you, God says. Job 33:17, that he may turn you away from your conduct and keep you away from pride. Proverbs 16:18, of course, Proverbs is full of it on pride. But 16:18, pride goes before the fall, and a haughty spirit before tripping and falling, stumbling. Proverbs 29:23, a man's lofty pride will bring him low, but a lowly spirit will take hold of glory. So a lowly spirit grabs hold of God and says, help me. But a prideful one says, I can do it, gets knocked down. Again, God wants to whip us when we need it.
Say, I did a Devo about this a while ago, but the Dunning-Kruger effect is, it's the idea that people who are actually geniuses in a field do not believe they are geniuses because they know enough to know they don't know everything. Whereas people who know a small amount usually think they're very good at their field because they don't know enough to know they don't know enough. And I think that's where that humility comes from of, I always want to pray to God for every little thing is, I know enough to know I don't know enough. And I think that's important to have that aspect coming at him, whereas saying, I'm going to pray about these things, but not these things, there's a little bit of that Dunning-Kruger effect at work of saying, well, I can take care of this stuff. This stuff is something that God needs to take care of. And I think that's limiting God's power, even though you are usually doing it to give him the bigger things and so I think that's a thing here with humility is when you have people who know this much and think they know everything, it's way more of a problem than people who know a lot and think, I don't know enough yet.
That was one of the discussed on those lines last night was a discussion at supper between me and another preacher. He said it's amazing. Geologists say we know this to be fact that it took billions because the paleontologists have proved it. And the paleontologists say we know this to be a fact because geology proves it. And he said the bottom line is they're both saying we can't prove it, but they have, and they try to use each other. And he said that's just faulty logic. And I way oversimplified it, Bob, because he likes that topic. But I mean, that's the bottom line. They point to each other because neither one of them know. And we just say, he did it. How can you prove it? I don't need to prove it. I have faith. At some point, faith steps in for us. Anyway, Nebuchadnezzar has no peers. He's the uncontested ruler of the known world at that time. Babylon rises out of the desert plains like a Manhattan skyline. It is one of the what of the world? It was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The hanging gardens were massive. I always wish that's something I wish it was still there that we could see because they say it was phenomenal, just phenomenal. Problem is he thought he was in charge of the world, not just the known human world. He thought he was in charge of the world. And he makes himself a statue. And once you bow to me, I'm so great. And he believed he ran everything. Daniel says, just repent, therefore, your majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Just listen to me, please. Renounce your sins by doing what's right. I think that's interesting. Which is more important, coming up front and saying, I'm never going to do this again, or just actually not doing it again. I don't know if you're just coming forward to impress people because they found out what you did. It's better to just say nothing and stop the sin. Isaiah, I desire sacrifice more than worship. Same lines there. Okay, so he says, renounce your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. And then your prosperity will continue. You're going to get greater, king. You'll be even greater if you humble yourself a little bit. But he didn't change. This is what is decreed, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You'll be driven out in the wilderness and be like an animal in the field, eating like a grass, like an ox, living with the wild animals. So the bottom line of the lesson is God hates pride. Because pride, the beginning of pride is the beginning of sinfulness. The beginning of pride is the beginning of thinking you can handle everything on your own. So last Monday, a week ago Monday, we knew the chance of tornado was extremely high where we were. If you look at Weather Channel, they did this between 1 and 4. You know, 1 being there's very little chance of it, and so there was wind, there was tornadoes, there was hail, and we were at 3 for tornado, or 3 for hail and 4 for tornadoes. So I mean, it's like they're pretty sure we're about to get hit. We did everything we could do, but we still had a couple people saying, "But what should we do about that? What should we do? What should we do?" Finally, one of them said, "We've done everything we can reasonably do. It is more dangerous to try and evacuate these kids with very few people and get up to high ground than it is staying down here low, below, you know, hills on either side of us. We're safer down here." And it's finally, John Miller said, we need to just quit and pray about it and quit fighting over what we're going to do about it because we're not in control. He said the tornado might drop right on top of the mess hall, we might all die, but at least we're going to acknowledge that God's in control and accept whatever he does. And nobody got hurt. Property damage, hey, it can be fixed. In fact, it's pretty much fixed by the end of the day. We need to let go of our pride thinking that we can fix it. It does not mean don't try. Don't do what you need to do on your own. God expects you to do your own work. But acknowledge that he's still in control of it all. Okay, so number 7.
Jeff, the only thing it does, it takes God out of the picture. That's a dangerous situation.
Absolutely. So if we compare a tornado, if you think you're in control of it, God can still move that tornado wherever he wants it can. But he can also stop it. My sister talked about it. She worked at, I think it was a Christian school in Alabama when they were down there. And she said a tornado came and they could see it coming. They had all the students in the hallways, but they had a glass door at the end. And there were teachers blocking the students with that glass door. And she said she's terrified of tornadoes. And they could see it, and they saw it just destroy a whole neighborhood as it came to their school. And she said she and the other teachers are all praying out loud individually, you know. God, you've got to stop it. We've got all these kids. God, and the tornado jumped, destroyed the school playground, jumped, landed on the other side, took out another neighborhood. Now, I'm not saying those people in those houses didn't pray, but you've got a building full of innocent children. You want to say happenstance happened, or you want to say God answered your prayer and saved all those children? I'm going to believe God saved the children because he answered the prayers of the teachers. Anyway, so Nebuchadnezzar's success led to his issues. How did his success lead to his issues with pride? Is this not the great Babylon that I built? He could have stopped with, is this not the most beautiful city you've ever seen? But he had to add one more, that I built. Look at this, I did all this. You know? What's wrong with TV preachers? Usually because they're talking about how much they did. You know? I built as a royal house by the strength of my power and for the glory of my majesty. A whole lot of I and my in there. How long did he give him to repent? Do we remember?
Not long.
12 months.
12 months.
At the end of 12 months, he made this statement. God said, that's it. He didn't say ahead of time how long he had. Daniel just told him, Belshazzar, said, stop it. But God let it go on for 12 months. So when's God going to come back? Could be 12 million years, could be 12 days from now.
But when God spoke then, it said the very hour the word was fulfilled.
Yep. So the bottom line of that is, we don't know when he's coming, so you should be prepared all the time for his coming. Isaiah chapter 30, yes, ma'am.
This is another good example, which is all in the Bible, of the pride before the fall. And I like this lesson because of how he was so powerful, but how God can bring you down. He can build you up, and he can bring you down when you're too prideful. And it amazed me in the verse how he was eating grass. So that's not good. He probably bound up pretty good too. So I'm just saying that's bad.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot of nutrition in grass.
No.
Yeah. I would tell you this, kids, we all were characters. We had some time to kill in class today, so we all choose our favorite Bible, Old Testament character. So I chose Abednego. And the oldest group of girls, they came up and I said, okay, I had 2 friends were with me and said, Abednego. Out of the whole Bible, where'd you get that? Because you've already told the story in the past about your dad said, to bed you go, and threw you in bed, we remember. Oh, okay, well, there's so much for that one. So then I said, my name is Peter, there you go, find my name. So I made him search through the scriptures and find out that I was Azarias. Anyway, Azarias. In Isaiah chapter 30, verse 18, therefore God waits with longing, my new Bible, therefore Yahweh waits with longing, to be gracious to you. And therefore he is on high to have compassion on you, for Yahweh is a God of justice. How blessed are all those who wait for him. He waits with longing to be good to us. God wants to be good to us. And he waits. But there will come a day when he will say, that's it, I'm done with this mess. It's over. What did he do in the days of Noah? I think I'll just kill them all and start over. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 10. Somebody ring a bell, please. It's actually time. Almost a second. Or just go down and yell for the kids to come upstairs. I was looking for a short way to say why is God opposed to people acting with pride? And the phrase I decided was best was, pride means you are overly concerned with yourself. Overly concerned with yourself.
I think the biggest thing that I think where, like monks who take the absence of pride very far, where like they can't even compliment each other kind of thing. I think that is a way out of the context. I think it's okay to be proud of what you're doing and what you do and stuff like that. Where it becomes pride and is when it's, I do this by myself and it's not from the fact that I learned something from Jeff years ago. Like, it's truly, this is me, 100% me, and you really become selfish in what you're thinking. And I think that's what it leads to. And then you start making decisions poorly as well. Where it's just, I'm proud of a lot of stuff I do. But that doesn't mean, but I also know I work with teams of people that make that stuff happen. And I'm proud of them as well. And it's not a singular act. And I think that's where pride really can get you in trouble. God never said don't be proud of yourself. I mean, that would be very anti-helpful to your mental health.
You have to be proud enough to do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Even if it's just being a cashier, I tell kids all the time, you're going to be a cashier at McDonald's, be proud of be proud enough in your job to do a good job. Because if you're not, you're going to be a terrible worker. And that's not going to take you very far.
I got an invite this week, and by the way, everyone's going to be invited. You see it in the newspaper, I guess, whatever. But the Black Ministerial Association invited me to join with them in 2 Saturdays. We are going to go through the neighborhoods where there have been shootings. And we're going to pray over each neighborhood. And we're going to ask God to stop the violence in Freeport. And the police are going to join us in this march. And the government, and we're going to go through these neighborhoods. And they said the plan is specifically, go to the scenes of violence and pray over them. And we're going to read scripture, and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to name those who have been harmed by gunfire and violence in our city as we go through there. And the point of it is it's basically saying, God, we can't fix this. You've got to intervene here. This has got to stop. And the reason I bring it up with this lesson is because the violence comes from gangs. And gangs, the very symbol of gangs is the pride that I'm in charge and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make more money. Drugs, prostitution, violence, whatever. It's about me. In fact, the keynote speakers we go around is a man who spent most of his life a very high-level gang member and decided that was not the way to live, and he's now a minister, and he wants to be involved with this. I'm pretty excited about this. I think it's a good thing for our community to walk into, really, as they said, it might turn out to be dangerous, but you walk in the face of danger and say there's a better way to deal with this than shootings. So I'm excited about it. Anyway, Proverbs 8:13, the fear of God is to hate evil, pride and arrogance and the evil way, and the mouth of perverted words. God says, I hate those. So, how does humility reveal that you acknowledge God as being in control of your life? Matthew chapter 6, 25 through 30, that'll be our last reading. Someone read that to me. Matthew chapter 6. Stacy, can you grab that quick? Matthew chapter, it's in the like first book of the New Testament edition. Okay. Matthew chapter 6, 25